Hello, good evening members, officers and any members of the public in the public gallery or viewing the live stream. Welcome to this meeting of the Scrutiny and Overview Committee. In the absence of our regular chair, Graham Cohn, Councillor Stephen Drew will be chairing the meeting as vice chair. However, I've been informed that he's been held up in traffic and will be 10 minutes late. To make sure that everything is in order, the first action that we should take is I would like to propose that I'm officially appointed as vice chair for the meeting. For 5 minutes until Councillor Drew appears. I've been told that he should arrive at 20 to 6. Thank you. Who would like to propose that? Councillor Williams and Councillor Bradnam have seconded it. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. First of all, just allow me to apologise for my late arrival. Unfortunately, I planned very carefully for my journey home after my end of my day, and unfortunately, my traffic plans were scuppered immensely. I appreciate everyone in the chamber agreeing to an adjournment and a delay, so thank you very much, and my apologies once again. So, to formally start. Okay. So, good afternoon, members, officers, and any members of the public in the public gallery or viewing the live stream. Welcome to this meeting of the Scrutiny Overview Committee. My name is Councillor Stephen Drew, and I am chairing this meeting because Councillor Graham Cohn has sent his apologies. I've asked Councillor Helen Leeming here to my right to act as Vice Chair of the meeting. And I am told that members in my absence have said they are happy for this to take place. Excellent, thank you very much. I will introduce other attendees when I invite them to speak. Those in the chamber are reminded that the meeting is being live streamed. By your presence here in the chamber and via video conference, you are deemed to have consented to being filmed and to the use of images and sound recordings for a webcast and archive recording. The normal procedure at Scrutiny Overview Committee's meetings is to review and make recommendations to Cabinet by affirmation. Only those members of the committee present in the chamber will be able to move and second motions or affirm. However, members present virtually may speak in the debate. May I ask those who are joining us remotely to ensure that their camera and microphone remain off unless they are addressing the committee. For those of us present in the room, please could you ensure your microphone is close to you and speak clearly when addressing the room. Finally, a report of this meeting will be presented to Cabinet at its meeting on the 25th of June. Since neither myself nor Councillor Leeming are able to attend the meeting, is there any other committee member able to go along, please, and present the report? I will avoid looking immediately in the direction of the usual volunteers, just in case, so I will start on the right and scan round. Councillor Bradham, is that a hand you have put up?
I'm happy, pending checking with my diary. But...
Fantastic. As ever, Councillor Bradham, thank you very much on behalf of all of us on the committee for being the volunteer. But as I say, I did start by looking at the right, just in case someone else fancied this opportunity. But thank you very much, Councillor Bradham, it is yours.
Chair, on this occasion, I might not be able to do it, so maybe somebody else would like to volunteer.
That's okay. I shall say in the meeting, even in advance, obviously our normal go-to other person is Councillor Stobart, but unfortunately Councillor Stobart is not present. We will, as ever at this point, work towards finding a volunteer who is able to do this for us. I see that Ian is carefully noting down the absence of a volunteer at this point. We shall move on. Thank you very much, everyone. So, item 1 on our agenda today is apologies, Ian. Are there any apologies for absence, please?
Quite a few. Apologies from Councillor Cohn, Councillor Fain, Councillor Ripoth and Councillor Stobart, and 2 apologies from Cabinet members, Councillor Henry Batchelor and Councillor MacDonald.
Great, thank you very much. Item number 2 on our agenda is our declaration of interest. So that was me, just imagining a noise, my apologies. Do any members have interest to declare in relation to any item of business on the agenda? I do not see any hands raised online, and I see no hands raised in the chamber. Oh, I do see a hand raised now. Councillor Heather Williams.
Chair, just double checking, the Greater Cambridge Partnership is referenced and I'm a member of the Assembly.
Indeed so. So let us record Councillor Heather Williams' membership of the Greater Cambridge Partnerships Assembly. And I do not see any others. Great, thank you very much. If any interest subject becomes apparent in the meeting, please do raise it at that point. I know that occasionally items come up as we are moving through and they perhaps go in directions that we're not entirely expecting. And obviously that gives us an opportunity to raise those issues. So I will move on to item 3 of the agenda, the minutes of the previous meeting. Do members have any suggested amendments relating to the accuracy of the minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of March 2024?
They look good to me.
Sorry?
They look good to me.
They look good to you. My apologies, Councillor Bradnam. I was looking at Councillor Heather Williams at that point, who was informing that she was abstaining, and then you started speaking as well. So I will take it from Councillor Heather Williams saying she was abstaining due to absence, I assume, and yourself, Councillor Bradnam, saying that they look good to you, and nobody else passing any comments, I will propose that we take those minutes. So therefore I move approval of those minutes as a true and accurate reflection as amended. If we could affirm that, that would be good. Agreed. Thank you very much, everyone. So the committee therefore agrees the approval of the minutes of the meeting of the 21st of March 2024 as a true and accurate record by affirmation. Which moves us on to item number 4 on the agenda, public questions. On this occasion, we have one public question. Mr. Daniel Fulton, would you like to ask your question now, please, sir?
Thank you very much, Chair. It is a pleasure to be here today. The proper operation of a democratic society relies upon the free exchange of information and ideas between the public and their elected representatives. In the United Kingdom, there is very little scope for the lawful restriction of political speech by public authorities. In no circumstances will public authorities' restrictions on freedom of political speech be justified, except where the restriction is made pursuant of a legitimate aim and where the restriction is objectively necessary in a democratic society. Will the chair of the committee support the creation of a working group of the committee to propose a new public speaking policy for the council? And does the chair of the committee agree that it would be beneficial for the council to seek the participation of local civil society groups when developing this new policy? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fulton, for your question. So clearly this is an important issue that you raise, and in advance of the meeting and in receipt of your question, we have made sure that a conversation has taken place, and obviously on behalf of Councillor Cohn as the chair, I will answer this question. Thank you for your question about the public speaking protocol and the possible creation of a scrutiny working committee to review it. Upon discussion in relation to this, it is my view that actually this is not a matter for the Scrutiny and Overview Committee, but is a more appropriate matter for my fellow members on the Civic Affairs Subcommittee. Therefore, I'm recommending that Scrutiny passes this question for consideration to the Civic Affairs Committee for it to deal with at the next Civic Affairs Committee meeting, and that they will then provide a response on behalf of the Civic Affairs Committee. So that is my response to the question immediately.
Thank you very much, and I will look forward to this issue being raised at that committee in due course.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Fulton, and thank you for your question and your public participation. So we move on to question 5. Agenda item 5. Agenda item 5 relates to the cost of living support update. So members and public have had the report in advance of the meeting, and as we will always do at this point, we will open up for members to ask questions. In the first instance, we will direct our questions towards Councillor Bridget Smith as the leader of the council, and Councillor Smith will, as always, either direct towards a fellow cabinet member or one of the officers of the council for an answer to be provided. As I always do, when we get to the end of the answer being provided, I will go back to the questioner and I will check that you are happy with the answer that's been given. You will have the opportunity at that point, if you wish to ask some kind of supplementary or to slightly reword or to check some point before we move on to the next person. Councillor Leeming, in her role as temporary vice chair of the committee, has her pencil poised to write down her first name in this role. So I will look out and I will see if anyone would like to ask the first question towards Councillor Smith on relation to the cost of living support update. Excellent. Councillor Sally Ann Hart, you can begin.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to thank officers for the report. It's revealed an awful lot of things that have been happening in terms of addressing the cost of living crisis. I was particularly interested in the comment in paragraph 6, the road shows that have been taking part in the cost of living talks. And it says that officers have been working to improve the uptake of grants. I mean, I think that information that we can get out to the public is so important. And I noticed that there are plans to repeat this later in the year. I was just wondering, have we seen any increase in the uptake of grants? Have we got any information on that already?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, with your permission, since we've got Councillor Bill Handley here, probably for his last scrutiny meeting as a cabinet member. I'd like questions to be directed to him on this item, but if I could just take this opportunity, one of many, to thank Bill for the extraordinary leadership that he's shown while he's been a cabinet member for the last 5 years. And, you know, we've thrown all the really difficult stuff at him. We threw COVID at him to deal with. We threw the cost of living crisis. We threw, you know, not our Ukrainian guests aren't a difficult problem, but, you know, they were something that needed a very immediate response. He's never complained. He's just, like a sponge, absorbed it all and got on with it all. With, you know, good cheer. I think he's been, I trust that, you know, officers have found him a pleasure to work with. Not quite sure what we're going to do without him, actually. But he's still going, you know, he's still going to be around. So I think you'll probably find us, you know, referring to him and deferring to him on a regular basis. So I'd just like to take this opportunity, which I will take at every opportunity for the next couple of weeks, to thank him for everything that he's done. But if I could pass over to you, Bill, now for your last hurrah in scrutiny.
Councillor Handley, you are as always most welcome.
Shucks. Well, I thank the leader for those kind words. It has been a pleasure to work with the cabinet and you know, the wider council in that role. To answer the question, I actually, this is a question that I can't immediately answer. I'm going to say I'm sure that it has, but can I ask the question of one of our officers, please, that one?
Who are we going to? Yes, excellent. I do apologise. I can't actually see your full nameplate due to the chair being in front of it. Would you mind sliding it slightly? That's fine. No, that's absolutely fine. I was entirely happy to announce first name, and I was just being completely honest by saying I had forgotten what your surname was. So, Chris Richards, please start with your answer.
Many of the kind of grants that we were promoting were not ones that were administered by ourselves, so we don't have the exact data on how the campaign actually affected the uptake of the grants, but we are seeing the house. So the three things that we kind of promoted the most were an uptake of national benefits, an uptake of household support fund, and using the food banks that are available. And I'm not sure about the national benefits data, but I know that the household support fund is completely inundated at the minute with requests for support, so much that they've had to close applications at the minute just to work through the backlog of the amount of applications that are taking place. And also the information that we have about the food bank usage is also breaking records every single year from now. So we hope that it is having an effect on the uptake, but it's not possible to say for certain.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Councillor Hart.
Thank you, and thank you for that response. I mean, it's good to see that there are plans for further roadshows, because I think and the more that we can do to publicise that, I mean, to get the information out there, because that's one of those barriers. So thank you very much for organising those.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sir Ellington.
Thank you, Chair. My voice is gone. I'm looking at page 11, and I've got a couple of questions on page 11, if you'll bear with me. Under paragraph 12, we're talking about 400 people and then a further 500 blankets, electric blankets. I think it could be a little more clarity about the fact that the 400 people initially are different from the 500 people that were offered electric blankets. And I feel it is a bit confusing in that respect. Moving on down to paragraph 14 and 15, I think the extrapolations that are made there about how much money was could be saved is a matter that should include the word could, or as an example of, or maybe at its most. Because if you think about some elderly person, there may be other people in the house who are also are still needing the central heating. The blankets therefore may keep the elderly person who's sitting in a chair warm, but actually there are so many computations of what could be saved that I think the word could be added there a few more times. Okay?
Okay, great, thank you. Councillor Hanley, do you want to take the first question and then
Yeah,
the second?
well, the first question that's noted,
Okay.
and I'm sure that the author, Chris Richards, has taken a note of that. On the other one, I think the point is, yes, okay, I accept what Councillor Ellington's saying, but the point is that, you know, our actions have actually led to a great deal of savings for people who really need help. That's the point. I'm actually really proud of what this council's done for those people. So yes, Councillor Ellington, we will look at it to see if we can make it clearer, but the underlying message is clear too.
Okay. Anything, do you want to go to Conor Richards, anything to add, or are you happy that's the answer? Did you want to go to Chris to add anything, or are you happy that's the answer?
No, Chair, I think Chris will no doubt have made a note of those things.
Sure,
and I'll speak to him after the meeting.
I'm sure. Councillor Ellington.
I entirely agree with you, Councillor Hanley, that it was a lot of good work. I have no comeback from that. I just don't want to over-egg the pudding so that people don't believe what they're being told. That's all.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Next up is Councillor Heather Williams.
Thank you, Chair. And more of a thanks that I do note that period poverty has been included in this report, and I appreciate I've raised it quite a lot, and Councillor Hanley has very obligingly included it in his report. And just to say thanks, I think, from across the council for his time and what he's done in communities, and the fact that he's kept ourselves, you know, up to date and informed on things is really appreciated.
Councillor Hanley.
Thank you for those words.
Okay. I don't think I need to go back to Councillor Williams at this point. Okay, so next up on the list is Councillor James Hobro.
Thank you, Chair. So, first of all, I just wanted to make a general comment about this report. I feel really pleased that this council is investing so much money and time and effort in this level of cost of living support. We live in an area that is on average very wealthy, but where there is still a lot of poverty. And so I wanted to just voice my support for the work that's being done and for everything that we're looking at today. So to follow up, I did have a couple of specific questions about the Mobile Food Hub, if that's all right, Chair.
Absolutely.
First of all, a general question, really. So it's certainly indicated in the support in the report that this project seems to be a success and that it's providing a really useful service. So that's sort of justified to some degree by the number of visits, which I think is a really good first indicator. So I wanted to probe a little bit more on our evaluation of its success and what other indicators we have about how successful it has been, whether or not the things available in the Mobile Food Hub are optimal, whether or not we're tweaking, or to what extent we have any input in that, or is the whole project essentially entirely delegated to, I've forgotten the name of the organisation. Hope CIC, thank you. So that was my general question.
Yeah, okay, so we go for that one first, and if you have another follow-up. So Councillor Handley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As with just about everything that this council does when it comes to the cost of living work, we provide seed funding, we provide help and advice, and the idea, the watchword is sustainability. That's what we are not going to financially prop these things up forever, but the Hope CIC thing, I mean, it was a charity that existed before we became involved, but the money that, the funding that we've put in has been very successful, and we know that because of the increase in the use of the service. And I'm sure that we will continue to give as much support to the Hope CIC as is necessary, but it appears to be kind of gaining its own momentum. We're finding there's at least one parish council which is supporting it financially now. We would expect, you know, that kind of model to be rolled out in other places as well. So just about everything we do, as I say, is to do with is sustainability, getting things going, talking to people, getting the community going on it, and then without creating any kind of cliff edge, to gradually tail off the funding and off they go. And I have to say, it's a successful model. It's been working very well.
Great, thank you. Councillor Howbray. 1 moment. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. If I could just add to that and reference the food hub in Gamlingay, which we helped with small grants, I think, to buy a couple of fridges. And I think that's been our only sort of financial input there, but we do feature it in the magazine as often as we can. So that took a while to build up, but is now completely sustainable. So it's run by a huge team of volunteers. People give donations, which I think help pay for the rent and the electricity. So if I go in and get stuff, I leave a donation because I'm doing it because what I'm trying to avoid is food going into landfill. But I live opposite it, so I look out of my bedroom window in the morning, and it doesn't open until 10 o'clock. From 8 o'clock, sometimes in the most inclement weather, there are people queued up outside it, and it's the same people. That number's increasing. It's probably about 20 people these days are queuing up for between an hour and 2 hours to get in there. And, you know, you don't queue for that long in the rain if it's just for fun or because you fancy a free loaf of Marks and Spencer's bread. You're queuing up because actually this is making a real difference to you and possibly freeing up some of your income to buy your children some new shoes. So that increases. The food hub in Gamlingay also manages the food bank. When I last asked, which was a few weeks ago, I think it was over 45 families. Never know, that's double what it was at the outset. So, you know, this cost of living crisis is not lessening. The evidence is there for your eyes to see that it's getting worse. So again, it was a little bit of funding from us, and I'm sure, you know, when the fridges need replacing, we will step in and help them with that. But that's a collaboration between two churches, and I'm blown away by the success of it, but I'm also horrified by the need for it.
Thank you. Councillor Howbray.
So thank you very much to both for your answers. I mean, I think Councillor Smith's response in particular really helps to bring home the level of need here. May I ask my second question?
Yes, please.
Which is also on the mobile food hub, but a different question. It's about the awareness within parish councils that it's actually possible to bring in the mobile food hub, even if South Cambs hasn't decided to send it on the basis of an indication that we have of the level of need. So my ward in Falmere, when I talked about the mobile food hub, the parish council were very interested in this and decided that they would like to pay for it from the parish to bring it in on a trial basis, and that trial is still going on, but the early indications are that it is certainly being used. So my question really is to what extent are parish councils aware that this can be done? I don't know, but I suspect that many may not be aware, and so I wondered if we might be able to publicise this either through members or other communications to the parish council so that they know that this option exists.
Thank you. Councillor Handley.
I think that parish councils should be aware, Chair. We have regular liaison with parish councils, and you know we make it clear that if they wish to take part, we will hold their hand, so to speak, initially. The initial locations for the mobile hub were decided on what we knew about the need, people on benefits, so on, council tax relief, that kind of thing. We knew how to target it, and that was the way that we helped Hope CIC set up. The fact that it's already started to expand, I think we're going to see more of that. I don't think it's going to be any harm. It would be no harm at all to actually give a reminder to the parish councils that this can be done if they wish to do it. So I'm just looking at Chris Richards now, and he's nodding.
It'd just be a small note to say, obviously it depends on Hope CIC's capacity to do that as they're running the day-to-day operations.
Marvellous, thank you. Councillor Howbray.
So yeah, thank you very much. I totally understand that there will be a capacity issue, and I think it would be really helpful if there was another round of awareness. So thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any further questions, Councillor Howbray?
I do have a question on a different part of the report. I was going to let someone else have a go
That's
first.
fine. Councillor Leamy will add you back to the end. And it is actually now Councillor Leamy.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Councillor Handley and to all the officers that have been involved with this excellent work. And following on from Councillor Smith's comments, it's clearly needed in our communities. I wanted to ask specifically about the legacy of this project. So in paragraph 4, it mentions that this was recommended on the 20th of March 2023 as part of our response to the cost of living. And it's noted that it's a 2-year budget. Some of the things that are mentioned in the detail of this report are probably one-off expenditures, such as purchasing electric blankets for individuals in need. But there are other things that are part of the scope of the work, which have the potential to be beneficial to communities beyond these 2 years of this project. Things such as the community hubs, which used to be the warm hubs, have now become the community hubs. I wondered whether Councillor Handley or Chris Richards would be able to speak about the legacy of this project and what things have been put in place to ensure that this good work continues.
Councillor Handley.
As I said, Chair, through you, to Helen Leamy, as I said earlier, the idea is that we set things up, make them help to get them sustainable, and then to reduce once the community's got their teeth into it. And that's the idea. I'm sure, and I'm certain that there will be fresh initiatives coming along. And indeed, if anybody has any ideas, why not speak to us? It won't be me that's helping to bring them forward, but any ideas we gratefully received. I don't know if Chris or Gareth has got anything to add.
Just in terms of the legacy of each project, it is designed where obviously some of them are one-off projects, such as the provision of food parcels. If anyone does have any ideas of how to make that sustainable without funding, we'd be more than happy to hear them. But for example, the mobile food hub, so we provided initial seed funding to Hope CIC to be able to start this project, and the ways that this will become sustainable in the long run is by additional stops requiring additional financial support from either the local parish council or community group. And we're, in addition to the stop that's already happening in Falmere, we're in discussions with a number of other parish councils that are interested in this as well. We're also looking at a more local provision, which can be supported by the recruitment of mobile food hub champions in each village. So these individuals would be responsible for taking local donations to reduce the amount of expenditure that Hope CIC is having to make on purchasing food. Also to build further links with supermarkets and businesses to receive free or cut price food, including signing up to Fair Share, which Hope CIC has now done with our supports. And then finally, support accessing other streams of funding, such as lottery funding or other local funding schemes administered by different organisations. And similarly, for the projects such as the electric blankets projects, the community growing project, and the period products project is will all have a lasting legacy, as the electric blankets will be used for hopefully many winters to come. The community growing grant is for capital only projects, so once the money is spent, we'll be able to see the raised beds and the growing again for many years to come. And the period poverty products project is going to focus on reusable products, which again are not only beneficial for the residents themselves in terms of cost saving, but we'll also be able to see the impact of that initial investment for, again, hopefully many years to come.
Great, thank you. Councillor Leaming.
Thank you both for your comprehensive answer. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you, Chair. Well done, Bill, and your team. You've done a fantastic job. It's been, as the leader has said, it's not been an easy time, and you've made an enormous difference. And I remember when you came onto the council, you said you came on to make a difference, and you certainly have. So thank you very much for that. To my question, I wanted to point out that we're very fortunate in South Cambs that some of our communities have taken the initiative themselves. And indeed, I'll just cite one where there's been an extremely fruitful relationship between All Saints Church at Land Beach and Emmaus, which is the homeless charity locally. Now, Emmaus also have fundraising exercises, and they run a cafe. And when they have a surplus of materials, they send them to the porch at All Saints Church, along with all the produce from lots of people who are generous allotmenteers in Land Beach. And what is interesting is the number of people that, on 2011 data on Wikipedia, Land Beach has the sum total of 825 residents. It's not a very big community, but that porch gets used by a lot of residents, and there is a very regular usage of that as a food hub. It's an extremely inclusive community, and they're very helpful. So, I think it's worthwhile noting that there are these things going on that are outside, they're aligned with, but not reported in this report, but they exist nevertheless, and thank heavens that they do. On to the question on paragraph 28, perhaps this is for Chair, for Bill, or indeed Chris Riches. At 28, there's a rumination about the fact that the demand for the provision of food parcels, which is how we started off helping people, has decreased in the last 3 months, possibly because the mobile food hub has nearly doubled the number of food bank locations in the district, although it's not possible to establish the exact cause. And I just wondered whether one wouldn't want to speculate, but certainly one could ask the people who are using it whether whether there is a demographic difference between who goes to the mobile food hub, and whether people go to specific locations. And I just wondered whether we might glean any information that way, and whether you have any feel for that.
Councillor Handley.
Chair, the obvious one, of course, is that some people have mobility difficulties, and having a parcel delivered is going to be a real advantage to them. But those who can get out to the mobile food hub obviously are going to have a wider range of produce available to them. So I think that's the main, without speculating, I think that's the main difference, I suspect, Councillor Bradnam. I don't know if Chris or Gareth can add to that.
Yeah, it was just a small point on the, if there was a difference in demographic between those accessing the mobile food hub and receiving a food parcel. We did collect demographics data on the food parcels, because you had to fill in a Microsoft form, and it was vast majority of women applying for these parcels. I don't have to hand the data of demographics on the mobile food hub, and I don't think they're being collected as specifics, but we can ask the people that run the mobile food hub day to day on the general demographics of people that are accessing it as well.
Okay, Councillor Bradnam.
One of the things I'm absolutely aware of is that there is, for some people, there is a perception in themselves, a stigma of associated going to Food Hub. Thankfully less now, because it's actually become much more usual, and so I know that there's a potential that people would not wish to sort of self-identify, as it were, and so any kind of questioning of that kind would need to be in a very delicate and sensitive way if it was done at all. But I just wondered whether there was a perception amongst the driver, for example, if they were aware of some cohort that was no longer attending. But it's sort of very vague and furry and not very good data, as it were. But just a thought. Thank you very much for the work you've done, though. I absolutely appreciate this, and it's a very good report. Thank you.
I think Councillor Handley wants to come back in again.
Just to say to Councillor Bradnam that I think she's absolutely correct that to begin with there might have been some stigma. I think now people realise that a lot of the produce that's on offer is actually from supermarkets that might have gone to waste otherwise. And I think actually there's another, and I think that in itself is helpful, because someone who's queuing for a mobile food may be there for a completely different reason. You know, there's more than one reason. More than one reason why a person might wish to use a mobile food hub.
Thank you very much for the answers, Chair.
Excellent. Okay, Councillor James Hobro.
Thank you, Chair. So I had a couple of questions, if that's okay, about the low-income family tracker. So that's in sections 4 and 30. So my first question really was, I was a bit confused about the figure supplied in section 30 of 187,000. I wondered, is this specifically for the low-income family tracker, or is that a general figure for the increase in cost of living support that's ended up in paragraph 30? That's my first question, because it seems like a very large sum of money. So I couldn't tell from reading the report exactly what it was referring to.
Yeah, Councillor Handley.
Yeah, okay. That's if it's unclear to you, Councillor Hobro. If it's unclear to Councillor Hobro, then that's perhaps something we should look at. But you have to bear in mind that there is a staffing resource attached to this. So because there is a need for an officer to make the system work, to adapt it for our use, and to make it work. So unless I'm contradicted by one of the officers, I suspect I'm right in saying that it is the figure for the new scheme.
And your colleagues on the right are nodding vigorously, Councillor Handley, so that can be taken as a success. Councillor Hobro.
Okay, so thank you. That's a straightforward answer to the first question. So that sort of leads me on to the other questions I had about that part of the report. I was curious with I mean, you've partly answered this, but obviously part of this is purchasing a license for a software package. Part of it is a plan to do something with the data we get from that. So you've already said that part of the cost is staffing for a full-time position. But really my question was it was partly about to have some vague indication of how the money is going, because I was curious as to the distribution there, but also on what kind of proactive support has been tried and used successfully in other councils that we might adopt. So there is a reference back in section 4 saying that we're not the first council to be doing this. There are other councils that have used this system successfully to target their support in a way that allows them to be proactive and not reactive. And so that is excellent, but I wondered if there were any examples of the kind of targeted intervention that involves. So are we talking about information here or something else? So I was just hoping for a little more detail, if we have that level of detail at this stage in the project, if possible. Thank you.
Councillor Handley.
I will defer to one of the officers on this one. I think I'll just hand straight over, actually.
Who was going for?
Sorry, a bit of a double act on this one. So the numbers, to clarify, it's 52,000 for the software package for 2 years. There's 30,000 in the budget to, in effect, contact residents as a result of the projects and works resulting from the system, and the rest, I can't quite do the maths in my head quick enough, it's for staff cost. And I'll hand over to Chris just to give you a bit more flavour of projects from other councils.
Yeah, so all of there are lots and lots of examples of how councils have used it effectively. I think the most kind of documented is on benefits take-up. So within the system, there's a possibility to model based on the existing data there is to see which residents in our district should be claiming certain benefits but aren't. And there are various examples, just off the top of my head. I think in Folkestone and Hythe Council, they ran a pension credits campaign, and in the first year they were able to get £157,000 of extra benefits into the pockets of their residents. And there are much larger figures than that in other councils. In East Riding of Yorkshire, it's something like £19 million of benefits that they were able to get into the pockets of their residents. And there's also other examples in terms of preventing homelessness. There's modelling within the system to be able to target residents that would be at risk of homelessness. So based on the data that we would have on either their council tax arrears or rent arrears if they're living in social housing where we're the tenant, where they're the tenant for us. So once you are able to identify who those residents are, it's possible to implement more proactive support to ensure they don't actually drop into crisis. And there have been other councils that have been able to demonstrate a reduction in temporary accommodation use and homelessness applications. And I hope that we will be able to do similar, but it obviously depends on what we see when we put the data into the system.
Thank you, Councillor Hobro.
So thank you very much for the answers. I mean, the reason for my question, partly because I think this looks like a really exciting direction in which we're moving. And so I was curious to get more information about it in general, but also given the figure, it is clearly going to become a substantial proportion of our expenditure on cost of living. So I think it's great to hear a bit more detail in the way that it's going. And I wonder if perhaps one or two of the things you've just said might be added to the report, because I think it could be of interest to the readership. So thank you for the answers.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up is Councillor Heather Williams.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to come back on this. It was just what was said earlier. I completely agree that where possible, reusable sanitary products are the ideal, but please don't make it exclusive, because there are costs attached to those as well. It's not just the cost of buying, the sort of maintenance and everything like that. And for some people, that's, this is something that's very hard for a lot of people to be asking for. So let's not do anything that then makes it harder still. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Livio.
I wanted to ask about paragraph 26, community vegetable gardens, in that it's only allowed apparently from April to October this year, which seems to be quite a short time to be establishing community vegetable gardens. Needs a little bit longer than that normally. But also I was wondering how they were being supported and promoted, because it's actually quite an important, or could be quite an important project to take forward, because not just growing vegetables and the economic side of that and the health side of a healthy diet, but also the proven mental health benefits of actually being outside and doing something with the earth, which has been, it's been established now for a number of years. That is extremely good for people and actually reduces isolation in the community to be involved in projects like that. It would be just interesting to see how long that project is planned for beyond October this year and how it's being supported.
Thank you. Councillor Handley.
Chair, the sort of May to October period is, of course, the growing season. The idea of this is a relatively small grant funding. It's for things like seeds and general paraphernalia. And the idea is to encourage people to get into this. We do, of course, have sort of larger grants now available for allotments to help in improvement of allotments, or even possibly initiating new ones. And we've been talking to the parish councils about that. I'm a allotment holder. It's something I hope to be doing more of in the coming months. And as Councillor Earl mentioned, mental health, I know firsthand I benefited myself from the ability to go down my allotment during lockdown, and I could speak to people on other allotments legally during lockdown, and I found it of huge benefit. And I'm 100% for allotments, and I know that there are very simple ways you can do to improve allotments. The provision of toilets, for example, can make it more accessible and so on to families and so on. There are simple ways that they can be improved, and we are doing our best to help community groups and parish councils improve their allotments.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Councillor Earl.
Thank you.
Excellent. Great, thank you very much. As far as I can see, that is the end of the questions that members have suggested they wish to ask in relation to that item. I don't see anything online. I don't see anything in the room. So therefore, there have been a couple of occasions where during the questions that have been asked, Councillor Handley has agreed that there may well be some looking at some kind of word editing and such like. Obviously, the majority of things that have been asked have been related to clarifications or praise or such like. So therefore, I think that we have a couple of small items which obviously Ian will have noted, and therefore we will agree to obviously accept and acknowledge the report and thank officers and Cabinet for their work. And I would suggest we just do that by affirmation if everyone is happy to proceed at that point. Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone. Of course, Councillor Handley, yes.
This is my last scrutiny meeting as a member of Cabinet. Can I just thank the officers, not just of the communities team, but all of the officers that I've been associated with. I found them a thoroughly professional bunch, very hard working, and they've come through a really tough time. I mean, the COVID work, the Homes for Ukraine work, cost of living work has tested them, I can tell you. I saw it firsthand, and I just want to thank them for, most sincerely.
Fantastic. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Councillor Handley. So we move on to question 6. I was going to say thank you very much on behalf of the committee, but you may well find yourself answering something in item 6. You never quite know. The KPIs often range widely. I'm sure Councillor Smith won't throw you something, but you never... I know. I always think in relation to KPIs that all Cabinet members just have to be ready because you never quite know what's coming. So, therefore, thank you very much. So we have agenda item 6 relates to the quarter 4 performance report. So we have a number of questions in this regard. So we will be reviewing the KPI results, we will be providing feedback to officers and making any recommendations to cabinets, but obviously we will be exploring generally what the information tells us. So I'm not sure if during my little preamble bit there, designed to lengthen, anyone has put their hand up at that point? Councillor Ellington has, excellent. And then
Oh gosh, fine. I'm on page 28, which is talking about staff sickness. So I'm sorry if I've leaped over several other elements that others may wish to speak about. What I wanted to know about the staff sickness days, if possible, please, is were these figures based on the 4-day week or the 5-day week? If you see what I mean, because we're talking about, we've got figures that go back to 21, 22, 23, and therefore comparing 24, if we're talking about a 4-day week, is really comparing apples and pears. Whereas on the other hand, we are working a 4-day week, and therefore if it was 5-day week that you were measuring, it would be different. At least my maths say so, but tell me I've got it wrong. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. So it's a question that I asked as well, and I can't remember the answer. So can I just ask Jeff Membry to come in and just detail how that data has been analysed? Thank you.
Jeff.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. It's per full-time equivalent, so it doesn't actually matter how many hours that we're classing as a full-time equivalence. So at the moment, it would be people who were working 32 hours a week. We've done that for consistency, so that we can ensure we're giving you comparable figures across the years. Hope that makes sense.
Thank you. Councillor Ellington.
I will have to take that away and think about it very hard and work out whether it does or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, obviously, do feel free to put your hand up again in however many minutes if you reach the point of having further things to say.
It might be longer than that.
Oh, it might be longer than that. Well, you never know. Okay, thank you very much. Second up is Heather Williams.
Thank you. I'm deferring to my group statistician here. So before I get on to my questions, just the response there. So per FTE, yes, I understand that's how you get your point-based system. But of course, if people aren't reporting that they're ill on their day off, on their non-working day, then surely that's still going to skew the results, because we're not working on percentage of hours worked here, are we? So it's not we've lost X amount percentage to give it a comparison. We're doing X amount of days per FTE, but we've taken 20% of the days out. Our statistician in the room is working it out carefully. I can feel the cogs turning beside me. But Chair, if you wouldn't mind, and then I'll go on to my actual questions, because that one was provoked from the response given.
That's fine. Jeff Membry?
So yes, I mean, but you know, my glib response is people don't report if they're sick on a Saturday or Sunday, but I'm sure Jeff can give a more satisfactory answer, and I agree it's complicated, and I haven't got a statistician beside me, or perhaps I have.
Yeah,
Jeff.
What I can clarify through you, Chair, is that the figures should include the non-working day. So if somebody is sick for a week, for example, we would count that person as being sick for 5 days. I think what Councillor Williams is referring to is that there's a potential that if somebody non-working day is, say, a Friday, and they felt sick on a Friday because they wouldn't otherwise go into work, that they might not report that. Well, they should report it, but you know, there is a possibility that some members of staff might not be reporting that. But that effectively they should be reporting it, and it should be being recorded in that way.
Councillor Williams or Councillor Bygott, I'm happy for either of you if you wish to come back on this point. The only thing I'm going to say is we will maybe allow back and forward about 3 occasions, and then we may request it is taken offline simply for everyone's benefit. No, and this is the point about I was happy, obviously, to just defer straight to.
So, suppose for simplicity that if everybody gets 2 weeks holiday a year, and there are 52 weeks in the year, then there are 50 working weeks in the year. If people work 5 days a week, that means that there are 250 working days. I'm just keeping the math simple. Mm-hmm. If they only work 4 days a week, that means that there's only 200 working days. And then if somebody was sick, let's just say, for 25 days, then they would be sick for 10% of their working days if we work 5 days a week, but they would be sick for 25 divided by 200, which is 1/8. So that's about 12.5%. So they would go, so in one measure, they're sick for 10% of the year. And in another measure, they're sick for 12.5% of the year. So there is actually a difference. So if you compare the numbers one to the other, then it would be more serious if the same number of days had been reported sick than it used to be.
Straight through? Yes. I'm going to look at you each time, Councillor Smith, first of all. Jeff?
I'm going to have to get back to Councillor Bygott with that. I'm having to think through what he's saying. I think I can sort of understand. I mean, certainly in terms of annual leave is proportioned. So actually, people would have less annual leave under the 4-day week than they previously would have. But I'm going to have to. I think I'm going to have to go away and work out some real life examples so that I understand it, and I can get back to Councillor Bygott with a response if that's okay, Chair.
Great, thank you very much.
Excellent. Right, Councillor Heather Williams, you were actually up for your own question.
Yes,
so
for my own question. But just to simplify things, I think the issue is that if somebody's sick, we're losing 1.2 days worth of work as opposed to previously 1. So what we're saying is that day sick is actually more of an issue than a day sick out 5 days. Just if that helps clarify things for Mr. Membry. I will now, Chair, refer to my questions.
Thank you.
Just as I'm substituting, do you want questions for Appendix A and B?
We at the moment are doing our KPIs.
Just A.
And we'll come to the business plan section later.
Rightio. So it was just mainly around on page 26 about satisfaction with responsive repairs. And I do appreciate that this sort of goes up and down as things go on, but in the commentary to do with March, it says the pressure placed on the heating service to respond to extremely high demand during the coldest weeks. So I assume that's sort of the March, that's why March is worse than the December one. But that's not something that should be of a surprise to us. So what I wasn't clear from what happens here is what work has been done to sort of bolster our resilience against this, what proactive work is being done on this. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Smith.
So I agree with you completely. You know, times of year, winter is we kind of know it's coming, don't we? But I would like to ask, Chair, if I may, Peter Campbell, to give the detail of how we're going to get better prepared for this in future years.
Peter Campbell, who clearly knew it was coming his way.
Yeah, to begin with, I think that we are prepared. We obviously know when winter is. We know approximately when the heating season starts. Bear in mind, this is a satisfaction survey. I suspect that, and this is a special moment. I've no fact to back this up. That if people are waiting for a couple of days to get their heating fixed, they'll be more likely to be dissatisfied with that than they would be to have something which has less impact on their lives fixed. So I think what we're trying to say, and accept that it could be perhaps phrased slightly better, is that heating, satisfaction with expectations on heating repair are higher than they would be on other elements of repairs.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Williams, I just cut across you. I hadn't seen the councillors. Oh, you have? Okay. So I usually try to get all the answers out first, but no, Councillor Williams.
I'm trying to do as I'm told, Chair. I'm trying very hard.
Thank you very much.
So I completely agree with you, as somebody whose boiler did not play the game just before Christmas, that it is something you notice more, and also things like sanitary things, if there's problems with bathrooms, those sort of things can have more impact. While I agree with you, the proactive work, it gives me a reason as to why the figures go up, but it just, is there more that we can be doing in order to ensure, that people at least don't feel dissatisfied, even if it is heating?
Do you want to come in now?
If I may come first and then go back to Peter. So our target is extraordinarily high on this, and our intervention point is very high as well. So, you know, we're already dealing with a very high target. What I would like to draw your attention to is on the next page, emergency repairs in 24 hours, where, you know, our target is 100% and the actual is 100%. So on emergency repairs, which I would suggest, you know, are sometimes heating ones where you have a particularly vulnerable person, we're scoring 100% there. So we're dealing with, I mean, probably a far more ambitious target than you might see in many other councils. We've also recently moved to a different way of collating this satisfaction data, which I think has possibly made it more challenging because people are being asked on the doorstep, I believe, their level of satisfaction, rather than being asked, you know, being sent an email or a letter saying, can you fill this in and say how satisfied you are? So, you know, we're getting 100% of responses to people, whereas before, you know, a lot of people, I think probably didn't respond, so that probably skewed it. So I think this is much more accurate. But I take your point that you know, we would like to see an improvement on that next year. There is nothing more galling than aiming to switch the heating on and the wretched stuff not coming on, as I know when I find my husband hasn't filled up the oil tank, which doesn't go down well. Thank you.
I'm always tempted at this point to go to the monitoring officer. I'm always tempted at this point to go to the monitoring officer, Councillor Smith, and ask if it's okay for a councillor to criticise their partner in the public meeting, or whether or not it's considered defamation.
I haven't even started.
Oh, okay.
Chair, if it helps,
I have a shake of the head from the monitoring officer. Right, moving back on to Peter Campbell, who I believe has further things to add in relation to Councillor Williams' question.
Yeah, and Councillor Smith's covered most of it, but just for clarification, the new method of repair satisfaction is compared to the old method, which was the operative passing over the PDA that they had in their hand for the tenant to enter their satisfaction in front of them. The new method is a telephone call from an independent contractor to follow up. What Councillor Smith said is quite right. We are, you know, performing very well on the emergency repairs, which include total loss of heating, and of course we give priority for people who are more vulnerable. I think it may be helpful if I go away from this meeting and see if we have further detail on the heating repairs over that period, which would allow further analysis, and I could provide, if that's available, I can provide that to councillors and for inclusion within minutes.
Okay, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, and I can confirm that I have also probably breached the same protocols about my husband as the leader at probably several points. So the monitoring officer is going to be busy.
Excellent. Councillor Bygods, your name is down as next on the list. I'm not sure if you were just being flagged in relation to stats or if you did have an additional question you wish to ask.
No, thank you. That was just
That's right. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't just go past you. Okay, next up is Councillor Sally Ann Hart.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm hoping you'll just indulge me slightly before I talk about things on page 26. To go back to the sickness data, I'm just reminded of the discussion that we had in employment and staffing, where we also spoke about the fact that maybe people are getting less sick because they are working a 4-day week. So there's all sorts of variables in there, and until we get more information, so I just wanted to mention that as well. But if it's okay with you, I'd like now to also focus on page 26 and the other red markers there. And just wanted to, I think we've had this conversation at Scrutiny Overview before about the national target for re-letting properties. And you know, one of the things we can't control is how many properties come back to be relet. And I just note in the narrative there, it mentions that there were 38 terminations during that time. And so, you know, that for me indicates why it was still, you know, red. But again, I can see that the target there, we are, well, officers are working very hard to meet those targets. So just feel the pain there, because we don't know how many properties will come back and the nature of those properties and how much is going to be needed to be done before they're relet. But I just wanted to move on to page 27 and just say, you know, one of the proactive things that this council seems to have done, has done, is to employ an officer specifically for damp, mould and condensation, and can see what a difference that has made. So that to me is a real example of seeing that there is an issue and dealing with it. So I just wanted to say well done for that.
Councillor Smith?
Thank you very much. So, you know, something's happening in the world that our houses, many more houses are returned to us in a really, really poor condition. I think it's a sign of the times. But, you know, you cannot turn around a house that, you know, is a real mess in a very short period of time. And I think we need to review some of our targets, because I think, you know, things change, and if housing stock's regularly coming back in a very poor condition, needing, you know, major refurbishment, not a lick of paint and a sweep of a duster. This is, you know, new kitchens, new bathrooms, and all sorts of things. I think we need to adjust our target accordingly. Having said that, we are still in the upper quartile compared with similar stock-owning councils. So our performance is actually very good, and it's slightly galling that it appears red here when actually it's very, you know, it's amongst the best in the country. I mean, I hope as life settles down and the cost of living crisis abates and so on, perhaps we won't see what is part of society's ills, I think. But, you know, fingers crossed.
Okay, great, thank you.
I don't know if there's anything Peter would like to add, Chair, to that.
Yeah, could I just add to that, just a clarification, is that properties do come back to us in a poor condition. That's not so much as that people leaving the properties with willful damage. It's more that we have older people, particularly in our properties, who've lived there for many years. And as they've got older and their health has deteriorated, they've refused some offers to improve their properties. They felt the disruption was too great. So you know, we're flexible enough to allow that and abide by the wishes of our tenants. But that does mean that we have to apply an amount of catch-up at time of tenancy change. The other thing I'd like to mention very briefly is the damp, mould and condensation cases. Our numbers are very low compared to other authorities, and we're in a enviable position that during the stock conditions survey, which we completed last year, we in effect carried out surveys on, I think it was 98% of all our properties. So we know for a fact that's a line in the sand for us. And so we've actually been proactively out to all our properties. I'm not aware of any other local authority who's taken such a positive step.
Councillor Hart.
Thank you for those answers, and having the empathy, you know, for those tenants who really do not want to be disturbed by having a new kitchen when you know, however old you are, and it's something I guess that is logged, and so you know when that's coming back that work needs doing, but you never know how many properties are going to come back. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bratton.
Thank you, and not wishing to labour the point, but my point was on this same item, because actually Peter Campbell has pointed out the thing that I wanted to suggest was probably the reason, and that is that we're a generous and kindly authority, and as a result we often have tenants who have been with us for a very long time, a really very long time. And I have been to properties where I can see that the property, it's a council property, but because as they've declined in health, they haven't want to have interventions done, their property nevertheless has declined with them, sadly. I also note that in March, sadly, that is often when elderly people who are close to the edge pass away. And so that's, and indeed, a resident in my own village, her mother, who was in a council property, passed away in March. And that's often the way when people are declining in their own homes. It's sort of nothing to do with whether the heating works, it's sort of like a phasic thing for some people. So I actually wanted to flag this as, and I'm very glad that you've put that it's an internal target of 17 days, which is very challenging. And I wanted to say that this actually shows that very often we are not disturbing our residents in their declining days. But one of the things I did think might be useful to track, and it's interesting that Peter Campbell referred to it, is how many of these tenancies, these properties coming back to us at the end of a tenancy have been damaged, deliberately, if any, and it might not be, it might be none. And how many of them are simply because it's an elderly tenant who has died. So that might be just something that might be useful to have as narrative, but I think that shows that we're a generous and kindly council that recognise our tenants need their time in peace. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
So I think we need to be careful about information like that because, if it might allow us to identify people, but maybe Peter might say something else. So I don't really know what the answer is.
We can we do collect that information, and we have a lot of information on our relet properties. Indeed, we've just started a new analysis to go through the data for all empty and relet properties to look at how much time we're spending not only on the voids overall, but on each stage of the relet process, with a view to bring around further improvement. So what we can do is that we will report that back to members at a future meeting, and within that we can include some commentary on the number of properties that have been damaged versus the numbers that have just been unimproved.
Okay. Councillor Badman.
That's fine. Thank you very much. And I certainly wouldn't want anything identifiable to be in there.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Councillor James, Councillor James Hobro.
Thank you, Chair. So I had a question about the planning application KPIs on page 23, if that's okay. So looking at page 23 in general, it looks like a really good. We're seeing some really good trends over the past year, right? So we're clearly we're clearly dealing with planning applications in a more timely manner than we were a year ago, and this is excellent news. So my question really was to probe into that a little more for some reassurance, I suppose. So I would make the observation that what we have here are KPIs that reflect the timings, but no KPIs that reflect the quality. And in many situations, there's inevitably a trade-off between timing and quality. I would hope that these improvements are due to us having improved in recruitment, perhaps as a result of the 4-day working week trial over the past year, and that therefore our ability to process planning applications has increased, and that we're simply getting through the backlog, rather than any trade-off against anything else. So I suppose I'm just looking for a little more detail on that as reassurance that these really quite impressive improvements over the last year are pretty much what they appear to be. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. So I'll answer the first part, and then if I may ask our Chief Executive to fill in any detail. So, you know, we were really struggling in planning to improve performance, and that was one of the main drivers for us embarking on the 4-day week trial. Now, since we've done that, you know, we have, from that point, and it's quite obvious from these graphs, we've seen really quite very significant improvements within our planning service. So, you know, that's the service which is really struggling with long-term vacancies. And, you know, good as agency staff are, they're not quite the same as permanent staff who know the council, who know the areas, know the people they're dealing with. So, you know, we have filled a lot of those roles. We still use some agency staff for short-term projects, which are funded from elsewhere. But I think the stability of our staff, and you know, when we advertise jobs, we are now getting way more applicants, much higher quality applicants, and I think that in part reflects this. You know, we actually, I mean, can you believe it? We sometimes get rung up by people from the private sector, planners from the private sector now asking if we've got any jobs. I mean, you know, fairly unheard of, I think, certainly in the past. But I mean, if Liz Watts could add some detail to what I've said, please. Thank you, Chair.
Liz Watts.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. To answer your point about quality, Councillor Hobro, I mean, it's a really good challenge. And some people may feel when they get to the end of their planning application process, if they don't get what they wanted, that the quality wasn't good. But we would maintain that we got to the right outcome. But the challenge was one that the team took up through adopting ISO 9001, which is Quality Management Standard. As you know, we received that last July. And that was really, you know, a whole team effort to put in place a series of quality management processes to ensure that the quality of the decision making and the process through which the decisions are made is really good, and not just that we get to a decision. So the team are really focused on that. They always, at the end of a planning permission process, ask for feedback from customers. And so we have a sort of continuous feedback loop about how customers felt. And, you know, sometimes people are just cross because they didn't get what they wanted, but often we get really useful feedback from customers about how we could improve the process. And that's a kind of continual process that my colleagues in planning are working on.
Thank you. Councillor Hobro.
So thank you. So, I mean, the comments on ISO 9001 do give reassurance about the quality aspect. And I totally understand that it is very hard to define a KPI that would measure quality alongside these KPIs, which are much easier to define, that measure the timings. So first of all, thanks for the answer. May I ask a supplementary, supplementary? Because I know that some of the, in some situations, then extensions are requested and granted. And I think if an extension is requested and granted, then the case would still fall into this category where it's within the agreed timeline. So I suppose as further assurance, I just wanted to check that there isn't any increase in, or significant increase in the number of extensions being requested and granted, because I would comment that I put in a planning application a few months ago, an extension was requested and granted, and this is simply because as a member of this council, it had to come to committee, whereas it ordinarily wouldn't have done. So the reason was perfectly understandable. But I did observe that I think as a typical householder, if an extension is requested, most people would simply say, yes, oh yes, of course, I'd rather this is dealt with than not grant an extension. So yeah, I just look for a little further reassurance that the increase isn't due to something like that, and that you are actually seeing the backlogs going down in a way that makes sense anecdotally from the inside. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith.
So the last time I asked that question, I was told that it was the reason that an extension was requested and granted was invariably because the applicant had not submitted all the information that was required. And that's true of agents as well as just householders. So, you know, I think our website is very clear about what's needed, and you know, sometimes people don't provide it all. So, you know, one option is just to throw the application back at them and say it's an incomplete application, you've got to do it all again. Or there's the kind of compassionate, which gives people the opportunity, gives people extra time in order to submit what's needed, be it a BAT survey or whatever, in order that it can carry through. But I don't know whether Liz Watts has got anything to add to that, or whether that was the answer I got quite some time ago when I asked that question.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Liz, sorry, yes.
Through you, Chair. So I think I'm going to have to give you a written answer on that. I did, and I was just trying to find the data, but I can't find it. It's not to hand, and my colleagues from planning are in a separate briefing at the moment, so I'm afraid I'm covering for them. I did recently have a conversation with the DM manager, and she indicated to me that extension time were going down, but I can't be specific about it. So if I may, could we provide a written answer?
Councillor Hobro.
So thank you. I mean, I feel you've answered the questions very well. A little extra clarification would be welcome. Thank you very much. I mean, just to reiterate, I mean, I think this is really good news, and I'm just probing a little to make sure that it is indeed the really good news that it looks like. So thank you very much for the answers.
Very much. Councillor Bearpark.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to return to the discussion about sickness earlier, because I felt it was unnecessarily confused. And I don't think it needs a statistician either. So the term FTE relates to working time only. So it doesn't relate to non-working time, whether that's holidays or Saturdays or Sundays. So the percentage is the percentage of sickness of working time only. So it's automatically, it doesn't matter whether you're working 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5 days, it's percentage of working time. So I don't know whether that's provided clarity, but I hope it has. Unless Jeff Membry jumps in and says I'm wrong, it is simply a percentage of working time.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. I note my colleagues on my right here are having a further discussion. However, if they wish to say anything on it, they will have to raise their hand and be added to the list. I'm not in any way denying anyone the opportunity to do so, but if anyone, either Councillor Smith or Jeff Membry, wish to respond to what Councillor Bearpark has said, I see shaking of the head. And one moment, because it may not just be Jeff Membry, because we also had Liz Watts possibly as well. So, Jeff Membry.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, that's essentially correct. If I'm understanding the argument that was being put forward by Councillor Bigert, I think we're in a position where we would be saying if somebody worked, for example, 50 weeks, if they have a week off, then actually it doesn't matter whether they work 4 or 5 days, it's 1/50th of the time that they work. But if it's less than a week, say 1 day, then that 1 day has a bigger impact because they work less days. So I think that's what I'm exploring, and will respond to Councillor Bigert on in writing, if I'm understanding that correctly.
You are back in the frame.
Thank you, Chairman. So I think the issue here is that it's the KPI is so FS 125 is expressed in terms of the number of days. So I think I'm right in reading this as that in December the average employee took 1.67 days as leave versus a target of 1.75 days, and in March they took 1.94 days. So if it's expressed as a percentage, then it wouldn't make a difference. But if it's expressed in days, then the number of days has to be multiplied by 1.25 in order to compare the result under a 4-day working week compared to a 5-day working week. That, I think, was our point before.
I am choosing to listen intently. I have lots of thoughts in my head. but I'm choosing to listen intently, and unless anyone else wishes at this point to comment, we will move on again. Give me a second. Councillor Smith, is that a nod to comment or to move on? Come on, to move on. Jeff Membry. Okay, Liz, did you want to come in? Councillor Heather Williams, do you wish to comment at this point before I move on?
Yeah, just to reiterate, the issue is, at the moment, staff are being asked to do 100% of the work in 80% of the time. Therefore, if I worked here and I have a day off, actually that means that we're not just losing 1 day's work, we're losing 1.25 days work on that day, because the day is required to do more. And because it's not that 1 day off doesn't exist, it's that you're expected to do that 1 day over the other 4. So it's about the value of the day itself. And as Councillor Bygott said, unless you are factoring that in, you're not going to get like for like, because previously, someone having a day off, they wouldn't be required to do the amount of work as they are now, so the loss wouldn't have been as great as previous. But also on that point, and I was going to do it as we're on the topic, how the fact that officers, and I've sat in many meetings on this, the fact that officers are required to report in that they are ill on their non-working day has never been mentioned to my knowledge before. So how has that been communicated with staff? How are staff meant to know that if they feel rough on a Monday or a Friday and it's their non-working day, that they are meant to still let you know? Because if not, that in itself really does skew the data as well.
Okay, seems an entirely valid question related to the KPI. Councillor Smith?
So I mean, that's an operational question, so I'd like to defer to Jeff, please, for it.
Jeff Membry?
Yes, what happens when somebody's sick? Upon their return to work, they meet with their manager, and the manager will discuss with them when they were sick, when they were well enough to come back to work, and then they put that information onto the iTrent system where we get our statistics from. So that's the process as it works. It's a discussion with the individual when they get back to work.
Well, there are plenty of staff that wouldn't receive that sort of, they've had a day off work or 2 days off, wouldn't receive that sort of back to work assessment. Surely it would have been more accurate and simpler to just make all staff aware that they need to say if they were ill on those days, if it's to be included. If not, working on a premise that hasn't been enforced surely cannot be relied upon.
Jeff Membry?
I think all I can say is yes, people should be having that discussion with their line manager when they get back from sickness. It's not the case that people wouldn't have that discussion. It might only be a very short discussion if the absence was only for a day or two, but they should be having that informal discussion with their manager when they get back to enable the manager to update the system.
Okay, Councillor Williams?
I'm not convinced that's happening in every case, Chair, at all.
Okay, so, but can I take that comment from you not as a rejection of the answer given in terms of saying that the answer hasn't attempted to answer the question, more a disagreement on the principle related to what's coming into the background?
I think that needs looking into.
Yes,
I mean, from a scrutiny point of view, I think that there needs to be explanation of this, and that definitely the details around this, because it's an important part of it.
Yes, I know. What I'm getting at is that when I go back to people and I say, are we happy with that answer? I'm always worried that someone's literally going to turn around and say, I absolutely do not think your answer has any validity whatsoever, which of course would be an issue. What I sense in terms of this ongoing discussion, which may or may not come up again in a few moments, is that there seems to be a particularly detailed investigation related to this KPI and the extent to which, as a scrutiny committee, we are able to simply take the KPI at face value, or whether there needs to be, as you've just said there, a further evaluation of exactly the way in which the KPI is being calculated, which may lead to coming back and a perfectly valid explanation which satisfies everybody, or may need, as we have had on occasion in the past, the need for a recalibration of where we are. Is that reasonable? Okay. I have Councillor Sue Ellington and then Councillor Tom Bygott. So,
Thank you.
and then Councillor Hobro, Councillor Ellington.
Thank you. I'm on page 43 and I'm particularly looking at item 5C. Is it so?
Sorry, Councillor Ellington, can I just pause you for a second? So I think you've moved on to the next section. And what I want to do is just I will make you first on the next section.
Fair
But
enough.
what I will do, so you've jumped ahead of us, you see. So what I will do is I will come back to you on that. I will take the last couple of questions. I might then be proposing we take a short break of about 3-4 minutes or so for people to be able to go to the toilet, and then we will come back and do the business plan.
Okay.
And you will be first, Councillor Ellington, at that point. So I think it's now Councillor Bygott.
Thank you, Chairman. So, sorry.
No,
to labour the whole point about sickness days, just a sort of question of clarification, really. So, forgive me if I've remembered or interpreted this wrong, but was it said at some point that if somebody is sick for a week, then that goes down in the system as 5 days sick rather than 4?
Let's get an answer from Jeff Membry to that very specific question.
I seem to recall that being said.
But if somebody's sick for a week, I said it would be 1/50th of the
I think what Councillor, to speak for you, I'll just do it in a slightly different form. Whereas Councillor Bradnam, thank you. Councillor Bradnam, the question that Councillor Bygott is asking is an entirely legitimate question. I recognise that we are falling into an area which, by definition, Councillor Bradnam, thank you. I recognise that we are into an area which obviously is a significant area of disagreement between groups on the council, and is also, quite understandably, an area that causes a large amount of debate. However, Councillor Bygott's question is an entirely legitimate question, which he is entitled to ask. What I just wanted to do at that point was just to say very clearly, and forgive me if I misinterpreted, but it may be quite good if I have a go, as Jeff Membry hasn't quite done it. My interpretation, very simply, of the question that Councillor Bygott is asking is that staff are working a 4-day week. They are working a 4-day week, and the explanation that's been given is it relates to a contract that still is officially a 5-day week, but they work a 4-day week. I think that's general agreement for where we are. So the question I believe the Councillor Bygott is asking is, if somebody is off for an entire week, so a 5-day period, is that recorded as 4 days of absence, or is that recorded as 5 days of absence?
Would it be possible, Chair, for me to check with colleagues in HR, because I wouldn't want to give any incorrect information, and then put that as part of a more detailed briefing note to come back to scrutiny? Clearly, there's been a lot of questions asked around this, and I can see that there's a need for clarity. So, if I would rather than me say something which might not turn out to be 100% correct, may I check that with colleagues and bring a statement back, please?
Absolutely, no problem at all. Go back to you, Councillor Bygott, before moving on.
Yeah, I just wanted to, because I thank you very much for the offer of providing a written answer later, and I do actually think that's the best way to handle that question. But I just wanted to get that in on the public record so that we're clear on exactly what the answer is going to be. And just to sort of add one supplementary question to that, and that is that is there a difference in the number of days that come up on the KPI between somebody in the first instance being reported sick for 2 weeks and the second instance, based on my earlier calculation of 50 working weeks in the year, of being sick every second Wednesday? Every second Wednesday. So basically, you're sick for 25 days if you're sick every second Wednesday, and you're sick for 25 days. No, that's if you take 5 weeks off. Yeah. So the question really is there a difference in the KPI between taking a whole week off or taking 1 day off in multiple?
Okay, Jeff, before you answer, I have Councillor Smith.
So look, I think to be fair, this is getting quite sort of muddied and complex. I think to be fair to members of the committee, it would be far better that we wait for Jeff to produce a detailed explanation of how this is all calculated, which will include all of that information, and very happy for him to share it in advance of the next meeting, because this is obviously a very live subject at the moment. But I think I said I'm getting lost, so perhaps other people in the room are getting lost as well. So I think just to be fair, to capture all this and put it in writing in such a way that it's accessible to everybody, not just the statisticians in the room, please.
Okay. Jeff, is there anything you wanted to add, or are you happy to go with what Councillor Smith has just said?
I'm very happy to go with what Councillor Smith said.
Sure
I understand what Councillor Bygut said, and I'll make sure that that's covered in the briefing note.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to check with some of the colleagues before I move on, because we are almost at the end of this section. So I'm just going to, you may look, when I say your name, you may look at me and not have any idea why I'm saying your name, okay? But Councillor Limmy and I have just noted a few things down. Councillor Hobro, was there something you wish to say at this point? Yeah.
Not on this topic, but I have a question in this section, if
that's
okay.
Fine. Councillor Bradnam, anything you wish to say on this point? And Councillor Hart.
Thank you, Jen. Just very quick, I promise.
Right.
I'm just also mindful, when I log on to iTrent, there are options in there to record sickness and absenteeism. So I'm assuming that that's the same for officers. So I just think that I would be interested to know how that tallies, and I'm just wondering if Jeff would be able to include that when the feedback, how that all links with those records, because that seems a very easy way to record sickness and absence on there. Not that I've ever done that, but there you go.
Okay, we'll take that as a suggestion, Jeff, if that's okay, rather than getting an answer. I think the last bit at this point in relation to this, before we will happily take Councillor Hobro's slightly different question, is Councillor Heather Williams again.
Thank you. I think having more information, as the leader suggested, is sensible. But if that work is going to be done, then I think it would be beneficial to factor in the fact that now the increase from 30 to 32 means in itself it's not even a 4-and-1 working, because you've got those two. So some people, for example, are doing 2 hours on their non-working day, and some people will be doing half an hour each day. So if we go into the trouble of that work, then I think it's important to see how that modelling going forward will, and clear in advance how that's going to be calculated for the purpose of sickness. Because I think part of the reason we're in this muddle is because it's not been clear how it's being calculated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Councillor Hobro, you are currently our last person if you have a question related to KPIs.
Thank you. So my question is, it's about pages 29 and 30, the KPIs around waste, and in particular, the percentage of household waste sent for reuse, recycling and composting, which is on page 30E418. So I know that there are comments alongside this KPI, basically giving reasons why the situation might be improving in ways that we can't see due to the issues of weight of packaging. So really what I wanted to comment on is the fact that over the past 4 years, ignoring seasonal trends, but over the past 4 years, this figure has remained approximately static. Now, I'm well aware that there's a very indefinite relationship between our ability to influence the way that households deal with waste and these numbers, and that these are often quite subtle issues. On the other hand, it is disappointing. I assume that we're looking for a gradual increase in this number. What we would like to see on a good day would be this number increasing gradually over the past 4 years rather than remaining static. So I wondered if I could just have some comments on our current thinking here as to why it has remained so static for 4 years, and whether there are any new initiatives that we're either contemplating or that we have rolled out or are working on that, that might lead to this number going up?
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, and I can see Baudet is waiting to jump in as well to give some detail to what I'm going to say. So, I mean, it's a funny one, recycling, isn't it? Because I mean, it's, you know, one's performance depends on how much stuff people are bringing into their homes and putting into their bins. And you know, I think we do a huge amount of work to make sure that the right waste goes into the right bin. You know, the ideal is that the packaging manufacturers and the supermarkets and so on start actually reducing the amount of waste that they generate. So, you know, it's a massive annoyance to many of us that, you know, we get home from the supermarket with our shopping and then throw huge amounts of plastic and card and so on in the bin. So, you know, really we would far rather reduce than recycle. In the narrative here, there's something about packaging becoming more lightweight, which is impacting. But, you know, I believe the top 3 performing councils in the country are Lib Dem controlled councils. So you know, there's some learning to be had from them about, you know, what it is they're doing to get up to the sort of 60% level that we're not. But I'm sure Bodie will be able to give you the detail of what we are doing to try and move that forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Smith. And through you, you've answered most of the response I was going to give. I think the main thing that we're not yet doing, and other top recycling councils are doing, is collecting food waste separately. We have now received some funding from government, and we're planning to start to collect food waste separately on a weekly basis from March 2026. The other factors as well, one of which is some councils that are the top performing, they collect the black bin waste on a 3 weekly cycle. So that's a common trait as well, which we do not have. And some also then charge for the green waste. But by far, the most common trait is that the top recycling councils, they collect food waste on a weekly basis. So when we begin to do that, we should see our rates go up. And when we did a trial about 1.5 years ago, we did see that food waste will have a big impact, because about 1/3 of what's in the black bin is food waste that can be recycled. So if we take that out of the black bin and we recycle that, then our recycling rates will go up as well.
Councillor Hobo asked the question, sorry.
So thank you for the answer. So I was wondering, so I think the main answer really is that the way to improve this is going to be the separate food waste collection. So obviously we have to wait for that.
Part of the answer.
So I wondered if, as a supplementary, I could just probe a little on the other aspects. So is there more that we can do that we are seeing any other councils doing on public education or information? And I assume this also relates to our work on encouraging more home produce, allotments, all of this sort of thing. So I accept there's a big picture here, but I wondered if there are any other significant facets to it beyond the issue of the separate food waste collection that we might be able to look at, learning, but accepting that there are other Lib Dem controlled councils that are doing very well at this, and we might be able to learn from. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So actually, I think our public education work is exemplary. You know, I remember it was some time ago being at Milton Country Park, where, you know, we had our team there encouraging people, you know, talking to people about how to recycle more. And obviously, we really exploit the South Cambs magazine, where every single time we put that out, it's got masses of information in a sort of central pull-out about what can go in each bin. You know, I hope that you know, this sort of community growing small grants has some impact there as well. But you can't tell people once. You have to tell them again and again and again, because they forget, or, you know, something changes. So it's an ongoing programme. But again, may I, Chair, refer to Baudet for some more detail about, you know, the community education we do.
Thank you, Councillor Smith, and through you. Absolutely, we do quite a lot of work on education. We're continuing to do more. We're collaborating with other partners in the county and also the in the area as well. Um, it's behavioral change is very, very difficult to quantify, but we're doing all we can and we're learning from best practice as well. You also see that KPI ES412 has actually gone down. This is residual waste. So on the one hand, we haven't quite hit our recycling target because we need to collect food waste and because the weight of packaging has gone down. But on the other hand, we can see that the behavioral change campaigns we are doing are having an impact because the total amount of waste collected is coming down. So it's a moving target. We will hit one and the other one is moved away. But we are continuing to roll out different measures, different campaigns just to try and hit both targets. One that we're working very, very hard on at the moment, and you'll have seen the campaigns on social media, is reducing contamination, just to make sure that what we do collect, most of it we can actually recover and recapture. And a big one that we're working on now is actually what people put in their bins, just as a side issue, but as a comment and a plea for help. We have had 3 vehicle fires in the last 3 weeks. We had just one 2 days ago. So people are now beginning to put the wrong things into the bins. So we're getting batteries, all sorts into the vehicles, and that's caused 3 fires in the last 3 weeks. So there's a lot we're doing now. You will be seeing campaigns online as we speak, just upping up the tempo on that. There's a lot that we're doing to try and get people to behave in the correct way. But it's always a moving target. So we're doing all we can, and we're open to more ideas as well.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you very much for such comprehensive answers. And just as a final comment, I'd like to say it is really good to see that the figures for total waste are going down. That's a very good sign. So thank you for mentioning that. And I hadn't mentioned it earlier, but I'm very pleased to note that. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you. And absolutely, I wanted to point that out, that the total waste is reducing, which is a real significant improvement. But I also wanted to support Bode, because actually one of the things that I believe is the case, and do correct me if I'm wrong, is that, of course, because composting waste is so heavy and wet, it represents a very high proportion of the weight. And so the actual percentage that is all the other kinds of waste is a relatively smaller percentage of the weight. So I'm just wondering if, yes, we know these figures are affected seasonally, but also we know that there's this huge influence of composting waste, which is good that people are sending it for composting, but it affects our data.
Thank you. And Bode is nodding in agreement, I think, rather than providing an answer.
Fully agree.
Is that okay?
Yes, I entirely agree with Councillor Bradnam. Yes.
I was going to say, Councillor Bradnam, I think you're getting a nod of agreement rather than an
That's
answer.
great. Thank you, Bode.
And you are nodding as well. Right, no, not my last one. Councillor Bear Park.
Yes, just quickly wanted to comment on the council tax collection rates, and just wanted to congratulate Peter Maddock and his team on being the joint top collection rate in the country. I think it's very important that that's a high rate so that we can continue to provide high quality services. And not only that, I guess it's also collection rates for county council, fire authority and parish councils as well. So well done to the team.
Councillor Smith or Peter Maddock, or just a nod?
Well, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And, with a cost of living crisis, when actually it was not unreasonable to expect it to go down, and the fact that we've maintained our collection rates is nothing short of extraordinary, and all credit to Peter and his team.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. Right, Councillor Heather Williams, you are currently the last on the list, but you never know.
I think it'll be a quick answer, and I hope a positive answer from the leader. Just to say, there's been talk about learning best practice, but can we have reassurance that regardless of who's in control of a council, if they've got a good idea, then it will be, looked at?
Yes.
There we are, that is the shortest answer. Excellent. I usually when I am sharing, I wait to be added to my bit at the end, but I wish to point out, Councillor Hobo, that on 2 separate occasions you literally asked the questions that were in my head to ask. I'm not sure whether or not you'll take that as a compliment. It might be something concerning. It is currently 19:27. I suggest that we say we're taking a 3-minute break. We will definitely be restarting at 7:35, which is 7 minutes. 7:35 to restart, everyone. Thank you very much. loud enough. Thank you very much, everyone. We are restarting at 7:35 now that my microphone is turned on. And we are moving on to the second part of the KPIs, which is section B, which relates to the business plan. And after kindly accepting being deferred earlier on, we shall go immediately to Councillor Ellington for our first question.
Thank you. I go back to page 43, ladies and gentlemen, and it's number 5C, and it's the third one down, which says, we will work with partners to influence improved links between villages in the north of the district to existing transport routes, e.g. the guided bus. And it says it's green. Well, I have to tell you that when the bus service was running before COVID, the bus went through the village to over from Swavesey and then round to Longstanton and Bar Hill and back again, 1 hour, and the next hour it went in the other direction. So it went from Bar Hill to Longstanton to over to Swavesey. That meant that people who were registered for the doctor's surgery in Over could get on the bus, go and have their appointment and come back within an hour. It now takes over 3 hours to do the same journey because the bus goes in the same circle, only it doesn't do it every hour, it does it every 2 hours. So it gets to be a very elongated thing, and I have not seen a bus go through the village with anybody on it for weeks and weeks and weeks because it runs at the wrong time, in the wrong direction, and is not being coordinated or serving the people that would use it most. I shall shut up and hope that somebody will pick that up and run with it, because
Councillor
it really is important. Sorry.
No, I thought you had finished. I apologise.
Thank you. So I have every sympathy with what you say, Councillor Ellington. And actually, if at the moment I had £1 for every hour I spend talking about buses, I'd be quite wealthy. So, you know, what this says is work with partners. And so that's what the green refers to, the working with partners. If we were not participating with the GCP, if we were not participating with the combined authority and the work they're doing on an enhanced bus partnership and bus franchising, then that wouldn't be green. But we are, you know, excuse my language, slogging our guts out on this to work with partners and influence to improve links between the villages. So Councillor John Williams has been leading on this because, you know, he's an expert in public transport, and I think he spent all of yesterday dealing with this. He'd done copious amounts. In fact, he got called into a sort of emergency meeting at 4 o'clock, which I set up because we were so unhappy about some of the proposals for the routes that were being paid for by the mayoral precept. And we thought that it was going to leave some South Cambridgeshire communities which currently have a bus service of sorts high and dry. So, you know, he very kindly dropped everything in order to be in a very detailed meeting at 4 o'clock yesterday. So it's green because we are working really, really hard on it. It's not a measure of the success because actually that's not in our, it's not in our control, it's not in our gift. You know, what all we can do is influence, and that we are trying very hard to do.
So just before I go back to Councillor Ellington, Councillor Smith, is there anything additional that you would advise Councillor Ellington that she can do for her residents in relation to the concerns that she raises about the bus through Swavesey?
Yes, absolutely. So, you know, if you would write to the Mayor about any particular issues, copy in me, please. Copy in Councillor John Williams as well. In most of the combined authority board meetings, we get people coming asking public questions. They are always, well, nearly always, about buses. And we get a lot of people turning up with questions, particularly from East Cambridgeshire and Fenland, asking very specific questions. So if you want to trot along to one of our meetings and ask a question about that specific route, then do, because you know, the mayor is kind of all about buses, so he needs to know all about buses, including ours. But if you don't want to rock up to one of the meetings to ask a public question, you know, you could ask myself or John Williams to do it for you.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I just feel it is such a waste. And surely all they have to do is look at how many passengers use the bus and how many passengers used to use the bus before they changed the routes, and work out that they're doing something wrong. You know, it's not past the wit of man.
So we're talking about commercial bus services here,
yeah.
And you know, they will have that data, and they will be changing the routes because they're not cost effective for them to run them. And this is what we have to constantly say to our communities. It is a use it or lose it, because you know, no commercial company is going to be running empty buses. Now, if we end up with franchising, albeit it might be quite lightweight franchising, that does give the combined authority some element of control. But you know, the amount of money, the amount of public subsidy is in the tens of millions, and that money has to come from somewhere. And now that it's not coming from the STZ, I'm not entirely sure where it's coming from.
I just feel that the buses currently are being run to show that they are a waste of space so that somebody can say, let's cancel them. And that really grieves me. I don't use the bus, but to see all these buses go by that are absolutely empty drives me mad.
Okay, excellent. Your point is well made and well heard, Councillor Ellington. Thank you. Councillor Hobro.
Oh yeah, I was just going to ask if I might make a comment on this topic, if that's okay.
You may make a comment and then ask your question, yes?
Thank you very much. So I've had a similar issue with buses in Folkestone Ward and in Falmere, and what I would like to say on this is that as local representatives, even though the District Council has relatively little influence on all of this, we do have a substantial amount of soft power in being able to try and get these buses rerouted. And I would say from experience in Falmere, when there were issues with the commercial service run by Stagecoach, when it was run by Stagecoach, then the local parish council and I got together with Stagecoach, and we got the route changed. Since then, there have been issues with the subsidised bus service, and along with the county councillor, I've been in discussion with the officers at the CPCA, and routes have been jiggled in order to try and make them more useful and better used. So I think there is a lot that we can do, but it requires very local input, and so I think actually the onus is on us, as with our local knowledge, and on the parish councils to get involved and to try and tailor the system to make it as effective as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, and now your question.
Sorry, I put my hand up in order to make that comment.
Oh, okay, no problem at all. That's fine. Councillor Heather Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the public speaking, before I ask my questions, I did actually submit online for public speaking, and it wasn't anything.
Is it CPCA?
The CPCA, and it wasn't anything. It was actually with neonatal leave policy, and never got anything. Filled in the form, didn't get a thing, and I know 3 other people that that's happened to. So actually, Leader, if you could raise the fact that it's not coming through, because it might shock you to say I wasn't going for a completely political motivation. I thought Mayor Johnson might be interested in doing a neonatal leave policy. So I didn't even put anything controversial, I don't think, in the subject to warrant a disappearance of it. Just heard absolutely nothing. Thank you. So that aside, I've got a couple of questions, one of which is around the securing, so page 51, 8A, Roman numeral 1. about securing the bronze status of the Carbon Literary Organisation. And I was just wondering how many members of staff that involved training, because I did look it up, and I think it's quite clear that everybody here is committed to, and we always have sort of cross-party committed to greening projects and the like. So that's not the issue, but it is very expensive, the memberships of the Carbon Literate Organisation. I was a bit shocked when I looked it up and saw how much it was, particularly with the training. So I'm just wondering, to get to bronze status, how much was it? And what benefits have we had from, I appreciate you get an accreditation, so you can put something on the website, but other than that, what tangible benefits have we had from it in order to make it worth the cost? So that was the first one, because I'm noticing 15% of the workforce, that actually would be quite expensive, not to mention it's a few £1,000s just to be registered each year, plus VAT. So that's my first question. I have one other question, Chair, but happy to take them in turn if that is your preference.
Well, let's do the first question now. Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much. So I haven't got the figures, but I'm sure Bode probably does have, if I may bring him in. But, you know, getting these certifications are important to make sure, in order to ensure that we as an organisation have the skills and the knowledge to deliver on our priorities. So I think that's what this is about. But if I may ask Bode to come in with some detail of the cost, if he has it at his fingertips.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Smith, and through you. I don't have details of the cost to hand, but it was a one-time cost so the way this works is it's train the trainer. So our colleagues in the climate and environment team got trained by the organization, and then we are now the ones conducting the training internally. So there's no other ongoing cost to us. But also the benefits of this is a lot more than just our colleagues being literate. What it means is that we are empowering them to do a lot more at home and also at work. We have a GTalk fund, Green to our Core, that we encourage colleagues to come up with projects, and we are seeing projects being brought forward now that can continue to help us to green the environment. So it's a one-time cost, which we've already incurred more than 2 years ago, and it's train the trainer. So all the ongoing costs now are just colleagues' costs. There's no external trainer involved anymore.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, and that's because when you look at the course for our size, it does say it's £1,000 for the first course, £500 for subsequent courses. And obviously, if that was doing for multiple members of staff, do you see what I mean? It starts to build up, and that's according to their website, along with the 1,500 plus VAT just for bronze, and it goes up.
So you know, we paid to train up one of our staff. So that member of staff now trains our staff. So we're not, you know, the Carbon Literary Organisation is not training our staff. They trained one of our staff to be a trainer.
I'm just talking about because there are annual renewals to keep the accreditation, and these are the costs I'm referring to, Leader. So it's just whether it's worth the financial and what sort of balance is being done. If we've had the training, what benefits are there? Because these things are great and they look great, but it's not. We don't want just like a badge collecting thing. We need to make sure that we're getting value for money out of those subscriptions. That's all it was. And whether some more information on that would be beneficial.
Would I be fair to say that, in a sense, Councillor Smith and Buddy have provided some answer to that initially in terms of where Councillor Smith talked about the value of it, and then obviously you come back on that, so you're happy to move on? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. So this one is on page 53, the last section, currently in purple. And in the top paragraph, it refers to the 4-day week and the report, the Robertson Cooper staff survey, and it says that results were overwhelmingly positive. Now, I had a little look through some of the points that were in that, and I'm just wondering, scrutinising that, in that report, it said that 35% of people agreed that during the trial their stress levels increased of which 59% of those people said it had increased, strongly agreed that it had increased and adversely impacted them. So that's the first one. The second one was that 28% of people said that they consistently worked more than the 80% of the contracted hours per week. And I think there has been some reflection of that in the fact that the officers are now going to be expected to do 32 hours rather than the 30, and I appreciate the parity with waste crews. But given those two, I appreciate there are other elements of the report, but given those two quite striking things, that 35% felt more stressed, increased levels of stress, and that's on page 78 of that report. Is the leader comfortable that it's overwhelmingly positive? I appreciate you can say that it's had some benefits in some areas, and the arguments have been put before, but overwhelmingly positive when people have actually worked more hours than they're meant to and become more stressed.
Councillor Smith.
So that was the initial three-month trial, which then led to a 12-month trial. So the whole point of a trial is to identify what the challenges are and whether they can be overcome. So, you know, we have adapted throughout it. So there will be coming fairly soon a new health and wellbeing survey. So that's the up-to-date data. So, you know, you're referring to the initial trial where everything was very new to people. So I found it stressful, you know, then. I don't find it stressful now. But we need to just refer back to, you know, what was the driver for embarking on a 4-day-week trial? And the driver was the recruitment and retention crisis that this council and the majority of other councils in the country are facing. And therefore, the results, you know, the results on that were overwhelmingly positive, and I'm very happy with that wording, because if we hadn't had sufficient level of confidence after that initial 3-month trial, we would not then have embarked on the 12-month trial. Now, you know, we've now got 15 months worth of data, which is being independently analysed. We have redone the health and wellbeing survey. We had various sort of heat tests during the course of the survey, so we monitored it very, very carefully to make sure that there'd been no significant downturn or anything that particularly needed to be addressed on a very, you know, which would merit the cessation of the trial. So I think there's absolutely no point whatsoever in harping back to what is now quite historic or very historic data. Our focus needs to be on the independent analysis of the data that is due soon and the new, I think also independently collated health and wellbeing survey that's going to be coming before us in a matter of weeks. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you. And through yourself, Chair, obviously not really harping on, I'm scrutinising the document in front of me. And also, I'll just read that sentence again, because I think actually what the leader's happy with overwhelming positive about the trial, but that's not quite what's implied here, so may actually warrant some rewording, as obviously we're here to give suggestions, because it says, data from the Robertson-Cooper staff survey, what I referenced, was also included in this report and showed the results were overwhelming. So it's saying that the Robertson-Cooper staff survey that showed officers working more hours and a significant percentage becoming more stressed were overwhelmingly positive. Now, if the leader is saying that as something on balance, bringing in other factors, then there may wish to be some rewording, because as it stands, I don't feel personally that actually that conveys what the leader has orally conveyed to us tonight, Chair.
Councillor Smith. Councillor, I think your mic, I think you, yes.
The reason that this is scored purple is that the trial's completed. So that's this is a record of us embarking on a trial and then completing it. So that's why this is scored purple. I mean, I've been given the dashboard that you're referring to, but actually I don't. You know, this scrutiny meeting is looking at. Well, I mean, is it really looking into the historic detail? I mean, is your unhappiness is with the word overwhelming? I mean, there's a value judgment there, and my value judgment is that's a perfectly appropriate word.
Okay. I mean, in no sense, we can carry on the discussion here. I suppose, in answer to the question I think you're asking there, Councillor Smith, in terms of looking at historic data, obviously the Scrutiny Committee has been presented with the report, and in the report here for this item on page 53, in the first paragraph, as Councillor Williams has referenced, it does refer to, I won't repeat the whole words again, but it does refer to that. So therefore, within the narrative report that has been written, it has reference back to early in the trial. I would suggest that you are entirely correct to say that the use of the word overwhelming is a value judgment. It is a judgment that has been made, and it is what is being presented in the report to the committee. My take on it is that Councillor Williams is suggesting that she would like you to consider whether or not the word overwhelming is the most appropriate word. You have come back and said that you believe that based on the information that is there, you believe it is. It is clear that Councillor Williams doesn't agree and thinks the word overwhelming is incorrect. You have said that you think it is valid. I would argue that that is scrutiny performing its function. I don't think Councillor Williams can expect you to agree with her challenge automatically. In the same way, I don't think that you can say that Councillor Williams should not refer to it. I think we have both put forward our views, and there is a disagreement, and I am sure, Councillor Smith, as you have done on a number of occasions during the evening, you have acknowledged the fact that Councillor Williams has challenged, and will obviously reflect upon that. The likely outcome of the reflection is that you will carry on using the word. Is that a fair summation of where we are?
Thank you, yes.
Councillor Williams, is that a fair summation? You are, of course, entitled to speak for yourself as well.
Thank you, Chair. In part, my suggestion was actually based on the oral answer that was given. There was more into it as to why it wasn't just that report and staff wellbeing, the recruitment and other things, which led to a balanced view of overwhelming positive. That's how I interpreted what we're saying. And I was just saying, if that is the case, because I read that, and I think the public would read that as that report, that specific report, was overwhelmingly positive. And I've just highlighted how there were a couple of areas it wasn't. So I was just saying that I would, scrutinising this document, suggest that looking again at that paragraph and making it clear what is being referred to when making that which is the leader's choice. It's not about whether being comfortable or not, but overwhelmingly positive. I'm just saying it seemed out of kilter, and some rephrasing would be more in line with what the leader already said to us this evening.
Okay, excellent, thank you. If
so,
you wish to come back again, that's fine.
So I'll just
otherwise I'll come.
So the reason I have the position I have is that on the staff dashboard, for 2022, the rating for good days at work was 3.95
per week
out of 5.
Per 5, yes.
For 23, it was 4.40. So, we are seeing, what I judge to be a significant improvement, to the point where actually most people are experiencing all their days, or nearly all their days, being good days at work, from a position where that wasn't the case. So as far as that's concerned, I consider that to be overwhelmingly positive.
Okay. Councillor Williams, I will give you the opportunity to comment again if you wish to. Otherwise, I'm going to go to Councillor Bradnam, who wished to add something to this before moving on to Councillor Leeming, who is the next question. Okay. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, that's fine. I was just scrutinising the document and giving opportunity. But equally, if we're going to look at those stats, I mean, because 4.4, when you're working 4, we're back to stats here, so you need to be really careful. It's quite hard to have 4.4 good days when you only work 4.
No, it was out of 5. It was out of 5.
Yes,
it was comparable data.
But I'm sure people really enjoy the day when they're not working.
Okay. Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to remind us that at 1B, this measure is about the impact of the initial 4-day week trial. So it was that 3-month period when we were assessing how the initial period, after we'd done the 3 months of planning, we set in place the 3-month trial, and it's looking at that period. And as Councillor Heather Williams has said to us, at that time, or during that period, 35% said that stress levels increased during the trial. That meant that 65% didn't. Similarly, Councillor Heather Williams has said that 28% said that they worked more than the 30 hours of the week, but that meant that 3/4 didn't. So I just think we need to be careful about how this data is being looked at. And in Employment and Staffing Committee, what I was aware of was that in that early phase, yes, there were some concerns, but people continued, and as time went on, they have become more confident, and it's become a very successful exercise in terms of staff morale. Certainly in the last report that we had at Employment and Staffing, it showed very positive results. We'll see how it works out at the end of the day, and we've got KPIs that we have kept through the whole process so that we don't skew any readings. We've kept the same KPIs which were agreed right at the beginning, and we've kept the same ones all the way through so we can make a fair comparison at the end of the trial. But those early days of change and new working processes, of course, caused some concern, but my impression is that this has moved on from the trial, and it's a really positive thing. But I'm not prejudging the outcome of the trial. That's just my impression from the data that I have seen.
Thank you for that contribution. I am going to come back to you again, Councillor Williams, simply because you did ask the question, and before I move on and close out the question, it is your right to speak last.
Thank you, Chair. And I have been actually very careful in my phrasing this evening that to not give opinion but scrutinise the data and scrutinise the report. So may I suggest that if people want us to use more up-to-date information than when the leader sends the report, she includes that, because we are here to scrutinise. I think if you look back, I've not given, although we have different views, this part is for scrutiny, and that is what I've done. And Councillor Bradnam, the information that you referred to, I realise I've now somehow become under scrutiny for using data and statistics, but actually I used the data from the report. That was referenced in the report, as has just been, if you don't want that report, the report is in a councillor's name. Give me something different to look at next time.
Yes.
Thank you. I was acknowledging the data that you quoted, Councillor Williams, and noting that there's an inverse to those percentages as well, and that's fine. You've made a good point, and I'm giving the inverse of the percentages.
And
thank you.
I am going to allow Councillor Smith to comment as well, in the interest of eternal balance, should he wish to do so. I am having a shake of the head. I am therefore closing down that question at this point until somebody decides to ask it again in 5 minutes' time. Councillor Leeming, I genuinely hope, Councillor Leeming, you are going to ask something not about the 4-day week, simply so that we can move on.
You'll be very happy to hear that this is an eagle-eyed comment on behalf of my local residents. When the business plan came to scrutiny, I made a request that the Camborne 25 project would be included as a KPI in the report. I think it was going to be in the Modern and Caring Council section, but unfortunately it isn't there. So I would like to make a request that it is included in future reports, please.
I can only apologise. Sorry? Oh, sorry, this is quarter 4. Oh, so it's going to be in quarter 1. It'll be in quarter 1. Yes. So
excellent.
It is programmed to go in. Thank you
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So it will be there.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to hear that it will be on its way.
Excellent. Councillor Bradnam, I do have you down next for something different, I assume. Yes, excellent.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to bring our attention to page 40. Sorry, sorry, it's a bit hard to read, 45, which is objective 2. We'll work with the City Council, water industry and stakeholders to address water scarcity in the Greater Cambridge area. And I'm very glad that we've got this as an objective. And I note in the narrative the government commitment and the number of papers that have been issued. And I just wanted to ask for an update. You know, it states we're continuing to work with partners to support the delivery of these measures. And I just wondered whether there was any update on this that could inform this narrative, and maybe we could have an explanation as to why this is still amber, because I suspect it's not something that we're not doing. I suspect it's because we're awaiting information from the government. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. So that's a very big question, and I don't think I can give it the detail that's required. I think we need to talk to Stephen Kelly about exactly where we are. So this is fast moving. You'll be aware that even against the recommendations of the Environment Agency, the new cancer hospital was approved. You know, we still haven't got the final decision on Bourne Airfield and Darwin Green, which is being held up by water, but a considerable amount of work is underway. And actually, this is where our engagement with government over Michael Gove's plans are actually working in our favour, because I'm sure the Secretary of State is aware that not one house will be built, never mind 150,000 houses, if there is no more water. So we've got considerable attention and considerable expertise at this. But as I say, I think it's too big a question for this meeting. And so if we may take it away at the...
Quite happy to have some answer in some other way.
Well, I think can you just, Chair, if you could just leave it with us about how best to update the whole membership and at what point is the right point to do that, because there needs to be consultation with Stephen Kelly about that.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
yes,
okay, thank you.
A yes on the back of the room. Councillor Bradnam, okay with that? Thank you very much. Okay. I believe that is it. So therefore, based on our questions in relation to the KPIs and to the business plan, thank you very much, colleagues. As ever, the KPIs to a huge degree and the business plan to a slightly lesser degree generate a huge amount of questions, and it is always great to see councillors scrutinising the information to the greatest level of degree and making sure that on behalf of residents there's a lot of clarity and picture in there. So therefore, the specific instruction in relation to that said we're being asked to review the KPI results and comments at Appendix A and progress against business plan actions at Appendix B. I am content to say I believe we have completed that. Feedback to officers where appropriate, any actions required to address aspects of the report. Again, there have been lots of little bits which Ian has put down as notes, and I'm sure that colleagues in terms of both Cabinet members and officers have noted down things that have been agreed that will be reviewed and looked at and thought about, and make recommendations to Cabinet where appropriate and where they add value to the process. So I identified perhaps the one at the end there where Councillor Smith has said that she would like to have some time to think about that further. We talked about the issues obviously related to the KPI on average absence days, which clearly we explored in great length and depth and width and height and whatever other word we might like to use. And we obviously have a commitment there for that information to be further put forward. So therefore, I would suggest that we have completed that, and it will come out very clearly in the minutes. I have nothing to identify specifically beyond the things I've said. So therefore, I would like agreement by affirmation that we have completed that point and everyone is happy with where we go with it.
Agreed.
Agreed. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Which brings us on to item 7 on the agenda, which is the work programme. We are being asked to note the work programme for upcoming meetings, subject to changes as the situation demands. If any committee or other non-executive members would like to see something discussed at these meetings, then please get in touch with the Chair or with Ian in the first instance, and we'll advise you about the next steps and practical timescales given the need for officers to prepare reports and time to be allocated to the work programme. Therefore, unless anybody wishes to suggest anything immediately that they would like to see on a future scrutiny agenda, nope. That brings this meeting to a close at 8:10. The next scheduled meeting of the Scrutiny and Overview Committee is Thursday the 6th of June, starting at 5:30 p.m, when Councillor Cohn will be back in the chair. Thank you very much for your time, and once again, my apologies for arriving late and delaying the meeting. Thank you very much to my excellent Camborne colleague for stepping in at the start and taking the notes. Thank you very much, everyone. Meeting is closed.